All right. Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm live again to talk about, of course, financial literacy. And today we're going to talk about Juneteenth's financial influence in America. Juneteenth's financial influence in America. I think that's a good subject to talk about because it is June 19th. It is a federal holiday. And so we can discuss the impact and influence of Juneteenth in America financially. I believe that's a real good subject to talk about today. So definitely wanted to stop through for a little while we are celebrating this federal holiday in America. And there was a time when it wasn't a federal holiday for everyone, but it is acknowledged as a federal holiday. So I want to discuss the financial impact and influence of Juneteenth in America. Should be very interesting as we go through this when we discuss this. So, good evening to everyone that tunes in. Happy to have you as you tune in. Hopefully, you gain something from this, or you know someone who this may impact, so you can share this video with them and pass it along so that they are educated and they grow from this. And like I always tell everyone, anything that we discuss, please feel free to do your research. Go back and look these things up yourself. That way you can find out what is factual, or maybe you'll learn something even more from what we talk about today. Feel free to like, subscribe, share this information. I am live on Facebook under my name, Simon Steele, and on YouTube, I'm live as well. Feel free to jump over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And it is Coach Steele's training session. Coach Steele's finance training. Coach Steele's finance training. So feel free to jump over there as well if you need to jump over to the YouTube where I'm live as well. So as we talk about financial literacy today and Juneteenth and the impact, it should be pretty interesting, and it'll be interesting to hear the feedback and the comments as people make comments in regards to this subject matter. Now, to give a little a little information on Juneteenth, I'll read something off just to give some context about Juneteenth, which is June 19th today. It says Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day, can be a catalyst for financial empowerment and economic growth for Black communities. I say for minority communities as a whole. Juneteenth events can help address historical inequities and foster access to capital and markets. That's interesting right there. And foster access to capital. I think having access to capital is big, especially in America. If you don't have access to capital and someone else has access to capital, you'll see a huge difference in their ability to grow wealth versus your ability to grow wealth, and access to the markets as well. I think that is very, very important. I like that. Not only capitals, but access to the markets. In other words, having access to the marketplace. Very interesting, which can lead to more inclusive agricultural policies and practices. These initiatives can also provide resources, funding opportunities, and training programs for many people, Black farmers and agricultural businesses. So when we talk about Juneteenth, and of course, yes, years ago, when this happened in June 19th, I believe 1865. If I'm wrong, feel free to jump in the comment section and correct me. I don't mind. We want to be as accurate as possible. But when this happens, we were definitely more so in an agricultural type society where people did live off the land, and things were being grown, and a lot of agricultural business was going on. So when we look at the fact that because of Juneteenth, because this was finalized, it did become a catalyst for financial empowerment and economic growth in Black communities, in minority communities, but also it provided the opportunity to have access to capital and markets. Imagine if you didn't have access to the marketplace, whether it's the flea market or whether it's the stock market. That is huge because having access to the marketplace allows you to bring your products or allows you to bring your currency to the place where there is cash flow, where there is trading, where there's an exchange of funds, allows you to be in that same room where there are millions and billions and trillions of dollars flowing around and participate in that. And so, if for years and years and years, your community never had a chance or an opportunity to participate in that cash flow, in that exchange, being able to put your products and produce out there, you missed out on tons and tons of money individually, but also your community. So when we talk about Juneteenth, this isn't something that we should take lightly based off the information that we're hearing. And so, how does Juneteenth impact each and every one of us today? Well, if you're in that Black community, that minority community, it has given you the opportunity to level the playing field and get out there and earn a living for yourself, create a living. Not only are there financial benefits, but it allows you the opportunity to have ownership. Allows you the opportunity to get equal pay. It gives you the opportunity to educate. It gives you the opportunity to hire. It gives you an opportunity to leave a legacy. And it also creates an opportunity to pass on generational wealth. And I believe that one is one of the greatest things. And we'll get to that later. But because of Juneteenth, it gave us an opportunity to pass on generational wealth, whereas before, you are working for someone else and you're limited to what you can do, and you're building up their empire, you're building up their business, you're building up what they have as a family so that they can grow it and then pass it on to their family, and you continue to work for that same family. But now, because the slaves were freed, and it was acknowledged throughout the United States, and I'll get to something else I'll read. It says, dating back to 1865, Juneteenth commemorates the day when 250,000 slaves in the state of Texas, which became the last for slavery during the final days of the Civil War, were declared free by the U.S. Army. And so Juneteenth has become the most well-known celebration for the ending of slavery in the United States, and viewed by some as America's second Independence Day. But the history of this important celebration is complex and often misunderstood. And so, what we must understand is it is finally acknowledged and recognized throughout America that slaves were freed. And so, can you imagine that the people being free but not knowing it? And so, they're still doing those slave activities and not knowing they're free, but it being acknowledged and announced for all to know. And so now we have the point where all these slaves, all these Black people are now free and have an opportunity at leveling the playing field. Now, let's not get it wrong or twisted. When we talk about Juneteenth, the next day things didn't automatically get better. The next day things didn't just improve. This began the process and a journey to create equal opportunity. So a lot of forefathers and ancestors began the process to give us the opportunities that we have today. So keep that in mind and keep that in perspective as we talk about Juneteenth and the impact and influence that it's had on us today. So I just wanted to make sure I give some context, historical context, before we dive in these the impact and the opportunities of today, because there's a lot different today that wasn't back then. When we look at the statistics of 2023, and the statistics say that there are now over 2 million Black millionaires in America back in the number was back in 2023, there were over 2 million Black millionaires in America. Now, of course, there's no way before Juneteenth that this was possible or was going to happen. But now, 2023 states there's over 2 million Black millionaires in America. Are you one of them? Are you one of the 2 million plus? And that number could be greater than that. It's just probably what they know or what they have on record. But the number could be slightly greater than that. But what's interesting that I think people should think about is out of that 2 million, that only makes up a little less than 9% of the millionaires. It's like 8.8%. So out of, when we talk about 100% of the millionaires, the Black millionaires is only 8.8%. And so that's something interesting to think about. But I believe that number will continue to grow in our community. And so let me dive into this, and then we'll go a little bit further. So as we continue on and we talk about the impact and the influence of Juneteenth in America, I want you to think about the financial benefits of it. Think about the people who didn't have an opportunity to be landowners. Think about the people who didn't have opportunity to be homeowners. Think about the opportunity of being able to walk into a bank as you please to conduct business. And now you can walk into a bank and conduct business and do things on your own time and how you plan to and how you choose to. Think about how complicated it would have been back then to get capital, to leverage assets, to gain capital so that you can grow your business. And so if that was not possible and now it is, yes, there are millions and millions of dollars that the Black community missed out on. You know, the number is endless. When you talk about being able to pass down generational wealth and different things like that. But now, because of that, it gives us an opportunity to grow our wealth. And so because we have that opportunity, we have to take advantage of that opportunity and move forward now at this point. Move forward now at this point and take advantage of it and use it to our advantage. Are there still some inequalities and things that happen when we're trying to leverage assets or gain capital? Yes, there are. And sometimes there's ways around that. But those things still happen today. But thank goodness that we have an opportunity and a way to leverage capital and assets, to leverage assets, to get capital, to get funding for some of those things that we do want to start. So there are a lot of financial benefits. And one of the simplest things is now when you work for someone, it is possible, not that it always happens, but it is possible to get paid to earn an income at a 9-to-5 job. And in a sense, you're not working for free. You're not working just for pennies. You're not working just for food, or you're not working just to stay alive, but you're working with an opportunity at that 9-to-5 to eventually retire or be able to take that 9-to-5 income and grow your own business, or take that 9-to-5 income and create passive income. Remember, one of the things we looked at of June 19th and the benefits was it gave you access to the market. And so there was a time when we didn't have access to the marketplace, and now we do have access to the marketplace. So even if you are on someone's job 9-to-5, you still independently now have access to the marketplace, to the stock market, to be able to invest your funds, to be able to grow your money independently. Because the cool thing about this is, and what's interesting about this, with now having access to the stock market and the marketplace, when you put your money in the marketplace, whether it's in a mutual fund, if it's in ETFs, if it's in Google, if it's in Tesla, no matter where you put your dollar bill, that share that you buy or that fractional share that you buy, it doesn't see a color. When your dollar goes in the marketplace, it does not see a color. So it doesn't see black, it doesn't see white, it doesn't see yellow, it doesn't see green, it does not see red, it does not see a color. And so because of June 19th, we have access to the stock market. We have access to gain capital and put our funds in the marketplace to grow our income. And I think that is very, very important that we learn how to put our funds as a community, as a people, learn how to put our funds in a place to be able to grow wealth, not just short term, but long term. And so you have to know how to play the long game and what you're doing certain things for. And so when you have income, when you are able to grow wealth, it also gives you influence and power in your community. It also gives you a voice. And so we can't take that lightly as well. Being able to have access to capital and have access to the marketplace also gives you a voice in the community. It gives you a voice in politics as well, because you have the ability to make things happen. And usually when people are running for a position, when people are running to get elected, they want to talk to people who can make things move and make things shake. And they also need funding for their election. And they want to talk to business owners. They want to talk to people who have ownership of places and things. So when we talk about Juneteenth, it created a lot of opportunities, not the next day, but throughout that journey and throughout that process. So let's keep that in mind. There are a lot of financial benefits when we talk about the impact long term of Juneteenth. What are some other benefits? Well, another benefit that I like of Juneteenth is ownership. My goodness. To be able to create your own business, to be able to create your own opportunities. It's one thing that the fact that you can create your own business, but you can also employ yourself. But if you create your own business, whether you start off employing yourself, eventually you get to the point to where you can create opportunities for other people. You create an opportunity to hire other people. You create an opportunity not only to hire other people, but then if you recognize people are being treated wrong, if they're being taken advantage of, if you have a quality business, you can now then employ people, hire people, treat them right, take care of them, make sure they get equal pay and benefits, so on and so forth, to improve their situation, to better themselves. And so there's so many benefits of Juneteenth because of our forefathers, because of our ancestors, the different things that and the sacrifices that were made. We have so many opportunities now. Can anybody who's listening in write one opportunity you have now because of Juneteenth? What is something that you can do now and you benefit from because of the sacrifices before, because of the ancestors and your forefathers, different people like that? What are some of the benefits you have now and opportunities you have? I was speaking on ownership. I love the fact that we can own now. When you look at the fact, and of course, y'all know I love talking about real estate. And when we talk about ownership, it's not necessarily just real estate, but the fact that you can own your own intellectual property. Oh my goodness. Think about it. How many artists, how many inventors, how many creators, how many people from a Black community, minority communities, may have invented something, may have had intellectual property, may have created something, may have made art, whether it's in music, whether it's artistic. And I told you all about my sister, so who makes these beautiful candles. So I'll use her as an example. She makes these beautiful candles. This is the strawberry shortcake, and of course, you'll see that in her candles, you'll see the art in there as well, and they smell delicious. So whatever the name is, usually you'll see that art in the candle, and I think that's very creative. And one of my favorite desserts that I like to eat is banana pudding. So that's also another one of her candles she makes, and one of the flavors as well. But Think about this. Whether it's candles, whether it's drawing, whether it's music, how many artists in the past came up with amazing songs? And now we listen to them, but their family never got credit for the music that they made. Their family was never able to take the wealth and the cash that though that art generated and pass it down to their loved ones and family members. But because now the things improved, when I talk about the journey from Juneteenth to now, because of that journey, a lot of us are able to benefit financially. And so we can't take it lightly. And we need to take moments like this to motivate us and inspire us to continue to push the envelope and take it to the next level. Whatever it is that you do, push the envelope and take it to the next level to take full advantage of your rights and the abilities that you have financially because of Juneteenth. And so I'm talking about ownership, whether it's intellectual property. We have access to the internet now. And so we have a lot of young people who are on social media, whether they are influencers or selling their product. They now have the ability to be owners and impact not just their local area, but worldwide. Because when we talk about social media, you have the ability not only to sell your products or your services in America in your local circle, but you can be internationally known. You can now have success and make cash flow internationally. You can create a product, you can have ownership, you can create classes, you can create education, and anybody anywhere can tap in to what you have and the resources you have to be able to grow, to be able to learn, and to be able to duplicate what it is that you created. And so because of Juneteenth, we have ownership, and we cannot take that lightly. So a lot of obstacles and hurdles that were once in the way are no longer in the way. So we can't make a lot of excuses. We have to put our hand to the plow as our ancestors did and get to work. Take advantage of opportunities. Hey, David, how you doing? Glad that you tuned in, David. I called you earlier. I know you're probably busy, so I know we'll meet up again. And like I said, David, I might get you in here. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about something in regards to financial literacy. So anyway, one of the benefits of Juneteenth, yes, there's financial benefits, but also there's ownership. And you now have the opportunity to own your own home, to own your own property. And so there's still some things when we talk about ownership far as real estate, there's still some things and inequalities that need to be worked out. And there's some ways around certain things, and I'll dive into that just a little. But let's talk about real estate. Now, Black people, Black communities can own homes, can own properties, can own land, can own commercial properties, residential properties, because you can get deals done without necessarily having to be in the room. You can now have a business in place and representatives on your behalf to conduct business, to conduct transactions, to make real estate deals without necessarily having to physically be present, but you can be present as well. And so when we look at that, I believe this is one of the biggest benefits of Juneteenth is being able to be an owner of real estate, of land. I believe real estate is one of the easiest, not easiest, one of the most, I'm going to go with easiest ways long term to create generational wealth, to build wealth in America for a number of reasons. I can't dive deep into every reason why I believe real estate is one of the easiest ways to grow wealth in America. But definitely, if you had the opportunity to pass down generational wealth, then the next generation is going to be so far ahead for a number of reasons, because there's so many different things you can do with real estate. Like some people when I'm talking about the benefits of Juneteenth and how real estate plays an impact of it, don't just think about how you can make with real estate, it increases in value, right? So if you bought a house for $100,000 and over the next 5 to 10 years, it increases to about $200,000. The property has increased in value. Your net worth has increased by $100,000. Now, either that property is being paid down by you or that property is being paid down by a tenant, however it is working, long term, tenant, short term, renting. Uh, but if you bought it for 100,000 and it's now worth 200,000, you might be making passive income from it. But think about two other things that as well, the benefit of now having access to owning real estate. You can actually leverage the equity in that property. And so if you have over $100,000 in equity because that property increased in value, then now if you need to, you can leverage the equity, get access to the equity in that house, and use it to now go purchase another real estate investment. And of course, you would do the math, you do the numbers, and make sure whatever you pull out and leverage financially, the next deal that you go dive into, that it is beneficial, that it makes sense to leverage the equity in your property that you now own to create a business or create another cash flowing opportunity that benefits you. And so as that property increases in value, you can always leverage it. And then if that next property increases in value, you can always leverage it as well. And so that's the benefit of ownership when it comes to real estate. That's the second one. Now, the third benefit as well, I kind of named three already. I talked about how you can create passive income from it. I talked about how it increases in value. And so that's another benefit because your net worth improves. The third one I mentioned is how you can leverage the equity in it. And one of the fourth benefits, so I get technical, one of the fourth benefits of ownership now is beautiful. What is that fourth benefit? It's like that silent benefit that benefits everyone if you do have real estate. There are tax benefits to owning real estate. Now, of course, if you have your own home, you know, every year, one of the basic benefits is you get to write off a portion of the interest that you pay on that mortgage. So once again, whatever I say, I am not a tax advisor, so always go back and double check with your tax advisor or your financial advisor and make sure that what I'm saying is factual and that it benefits you. So make sure that you always do your own research to verify what I'm talking about. But now you have the opportunity to use that property to help you far as tax breaks. And anytime you get a tax break, that means you're able to save yourself money, and you're saving how much money you have to give Uncle Sam. You're saving yourself how much money that you have to give back to the IRS. You're saving how much money you have to pay back to the government. Now, of course, we know that America has a certain level of debt and they're trying to pay it back. And so I believe in letting them do their job, do their best to try to pay it back, but use little as my money as possible to try to pay that back. Hey, let them pay it back. They created the debt, let them pay it back. And so when it comes to real estate, you can use real estate as an opportunity in four different ways. And that fourth way that I mentioned is tax breaks and tax benefits that come from it. Now, that if you have, now there are other tax breaks that you as well. But once again, we'll get with your tax advisor and find out you can write off. Because if you're going to go see about those rental properties, investment properties, you're conducting business and you're buying things, there's so much that you can write off. Hello, Auntie Karen. Good evening to you. I love you. I see your comment. I hear you, nephew. Yes, I'm up here talking. I'm going to continue to talk about financial literacy and bring awareness to our community, Aunt Karen. I think it's not talked about enough. I think we are doing a better job of having a conversation about financial literacy, and I'll just be part of the process to improve it, to allow it to be even more prevalent in our community so more people can hear about financial literacy. I think it's important that as many of us that are having success financially be a voice. And I know that I'm a great person to discuss and talk about financial literacy because I came from a background and environment where I grew up without in a household of having financial success. Now, of course, my mom did the best she could raising 7 children. And of course, 2 of them biologically weren't hers, but my aunt passed away at a young age. So my mom took in her 2 nieces. And so when she took in her 2 nieces, it became eventually it was 7 of us total, and she raised us and did the best that she could as a registered nurse. And so it's interesting growing up in a household, sharing beds, hand-me-down clothes, doing the best we can, learning creatively how to make certain meals that would stretch. You didn't know it at the time, but when your mom is making spaghetti, she made spaghetti for a reason for 7 kids, because spaghetti was a meal that could last. You could make a big pot of it. And then the cool thing about spaghetti as well is, the next day. Why does spaghetti taste good, even better the next day? So the little things like that, always making meals. I don't know if anybody knows about beans and weenies, but beans and weenies and rice. I used to love beans, weenies, and rice. And what's funny about beans, weenies, and rice was, for some reason, whenever my mom would make it, I could be outside, down the street, whatever, and I could smell it from a distance. I would get excited, run home, and you can make big plates of this stuff and get full. Never knew the strategy behind it. I was just eating. So when we talk about ownership in real estate, I think it's important. I named 4 simple reasons and 4 simple things when it comes to real estate. I'm sure the list can go on, but those are just 4 basic things that I mentioned. And if you missed them, let's see if I can, my memory can kick in. When it comes to real estate, and I'm talking about the benefit of Juneteenth and us now being able to have ownership of things, as once before, ancestors and forefathers, people before us who didn't have access to those things, the benefit for us now having real estate is, one, of course, you can own your home. You have ownership. You can own your property. And with owning that property, you have a place to live. You have a place that you can call home, that you can go to. You're not stuck in a dependent state. But with that property, you can get cash flow, whether it's your own home and you rent out a spot, or you rent out a room, or whether you have other ownership of other investment properties and you're renting those out. You can make money. It can be profitable when you have ownership as a real estate investor. And so you can create passive income. You can create cash flow, profit from real estate, but also real estate can increase in value. And when real estate increase in value and you have equity in a home, and I don't know why every time I say equity in home, like this is my sign language for equity. So if you have equity in a home, and I know some people are on Facebook, so depending on how I turn, sometimes you can't see my language, but this is my sign for equity. I just imagine pulling all of the money out of a property and you have access to it. I think that's just one of the most exciting things about ownership with real estate, because when you have access to that equity and you can pull it out, you really can decide to do with it whatever you choose to do and employ that money to a place that's financially beneficial for you and for your family. And the beautiful thing about when you pull equity out of a house, check with whoever does your taxes and things like that to verify, make sure it's true, but it is not a taxable event. And so those who are interested in real estate and you like real estate, the fact that you can pull equity out, now just know when you do pull that equity out, you do initiate or activate a payment because you do have to pay it back. But if you reinvest those funds somewhere financially that are cash flowing, and it can pay that back and give you a profit, then that's another win. So you can duplicate that many, many times over. I won't go into, you can do some research on something they call the Burr method with real estate, when, of course, you're buying a property and you're rehabbing a property. And after you rehab the property, you can potentially do, you can rent the property, you can refinance the property, and then repeat the process again. But because of ownership, it gives you endless opportunities and times to duplicate the process to be able to have your own real estate portfolio. So you can continue to create a large real estate portfolio. So having ownership now, the ability that we can own real estate, and it's not difficult, because think about it. A lot of us who are paying rent, who do pay rent, usually the rent you're paying on average, and I would say 99% of the time, costs more than the mortgage payment on the property that you're renting, unless that investor or a real estate investor has paid off the house at that point in time. But usually, a real estate investor, you're paying more to stay in the place, and that's for a number of reasons, so that they can maintain it. Not only can they maintain it, so they can make sure they pay the property taxes, the insurance, keep up the maintenance, the yard. If you're not there and you move out, that they can maintain that rent until they get someone else in there, and of course, so that they can make a profit. So usually 99% of the time, the rent you're paying somewhere costs more than the monthly mortgage payment somewhere. But of course, there's a time to rent, and there's a reason why some people do rent. So I'm not against renting, because there's a time and a place for everything. So I named ownership. That's another benefit of real estate. And I named having access to the equity and what you can do with that equity, which is another benefit. And of course, exit when your value in real estate increases, of course, your net worth increases as well. And so when your net worth increases, that's another benefit as well. You have access to the equity. You can create and duplicate the process again, and also the tax benefits as well to real estate. So, and I'll leave ownership alone for now, and I'll dive into equal pay when we think about Juneteenth. Because of Juneteenth, when slaves, before Juneteenth, when we talk about slavery, when slaves definitely weren't getting equal pay, when Black people definitely weren't getting equal pay in America, and slavery ends and we celebrate Juneteenth because it creates the opportunity to be able to, not necessarily the next day, but because of this journey, now you see minorities, Black people being able to have an opportunity at equal pay, or creating businesses to then distribute equal pay to others. I think that's very, very important, because if you work and you don't get paid enough, or you don't get paid your worth, I think it's important that you either create an opportunity so that you can make what you are worth, or be able to work your way up to a point to get there, to find where you can get your worth in another market, for another job, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of laws and different things that were put in place to try to make sure that minorities, that Black people did receive equal pay. So it did improve our pay issues that we had as well as Black people. Also, another thing that's important that I didn't mention is education. Another thing we can be happy and excited about is the education that we then had access to because of things like Juneteenth. Not necessarily the next day, like I mentioned, or the next month, but as time went by through this journey, we then had access to better education. And education is extremely important. Education is vital. And I'm not just talking about an academic environment, but it did start there. Us eventually having access to quality education came later on down the road. And so people learn how to read, people learn how to write, people learn how to do math, people get an opportunity to tap into their talents and their gifts through being put in an educational environment. And so now having access to education, we can create, we can think, We're not limited to just our physical abilities, but we're able to tap into what our minds are capable of, and having access to environments, and now our people being able to be teachers, and being able to set up schools and classrooms that we have access to be able to learn in an environment that we are able to create. And so that's huge. Now we see all over America there are tons of HBCUs. And so there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be happy about. When you read about Juneteenth, you see that the next year they had celebrations and festivals because of this. They wanted to celebrate. And so Black people would be in different environments and they would have celebrations and festivals because of Juneteenth. And so we must understand there's so many benefits for us to be excited about. When we look at today's environment, there's so many opportunities at the fingertips of our young people that they have access to. They're not limited to just being physical specimens. They're not limited to their physical gifts. Now, of course, we love the NBA. We love the NFL. We love baseball. We love all of these different sports that our kids can play, and their physical gifts will allow them to move forward in those different environments. But now our kids have access to things that will stimulate their mind and allow them to be very creative, that allow them to tap into some of the mental skills and academic skills that they have. And so there's a lot to be excited about because our kids have access to education, not just in the academic realm, but they have access to social media. They have access to YouTube. They have access to the internet. They have access to be able to Google something. So some of our children who have great hands to be able to build things, to construct things, to be able to engineer things, they have access to technology and education at their fingertips to be able to do those things. And we as adults have to be able to continue to push them to those things. Do not limit them to just the physical things, but also allow them to tap into the education and push their minds mentally to a place to challenge themselves as well. So education is another benefit as well. But like I mentioned earlier when I read off something, it gives us access to capital and the market. Access to capital and the market. And access to capital is important because if you have a good business, if you have a good business idea, good business plan, you can put all that stuff together properly and get access to capital. And another benefit of that is if you actually have ownership of land, like I mentioned before, you can leverage that because you have ownership. And when you leverage that, you can go to the bank. Some places will give you, whether it's 70% loan to value, 85% loan to value. You can leverage your asset to get capital to create another opportunity for yourself. Now, if you do leverage any assets, make sure whatever capital, whatever money you get, whatever funding you get, you create a situation that brings in enough cash flow to pay for that. You don't want to leverage assets and then lose them. We don't want to lose that because when you have assets and you do have ownership, ladies and gentlemen, just keep in mind it allows you to leave a legacy, which other cultures and communities have done. Other cultures and communities have had opportunities, let's talk about it, to leave a legacy, to pass down generational wealth. And how long have they been doing it? For a long time. And this is interesting. This is very interesting and a very, very strong point. If I've had an opportunity to build and create and own and have assets and be able to pass them down for generation after generation after generation, for decades and decades and decades, then my community and my family should be financially well off, financially ahead of the game. They should have a leg up because they have so many different opportunities and things they can leverage to continue to create. And if someone didn't have that opportunity to do the same, they would be behind the power curve. My momentum of my generational wealth and legacy that was created that I have access to is at such a level of steam that someone starting at ground zero, it's going to be pretty hard for them to catch up. It's going to be difficult for them to get to where I am because I had a head start, so to speak. And so either you can cry about it or you can get started doing something positive. You can get started creating a legacy, leaving generational wealth. And so, because of ownership now, you can create a legacy and you can create opportunities for other people who did not have opportunities. You can now set up structures, you can now set up entities, you can now set up organizations to give back to other people who did not have opportunities. Oh, the world is at your fingertips now, ladies and gentlemen, because now what used to be a problem, you can now solve it. You have an opportunity to make a change, to be the change, and to move forward, not making excuses, but making opportunities. I'm going to say that again. You have an opportunity not to make excuses, but to create opportunities, not for your just for yourself, but for other people as well. And so you have to be excited about in this season and this time what we have access to now. Because as much as we think things could potentially be in our way, we can't let it stop us. And I'll give an example of something. I actually had a phone conversation today and I'll share it. Okay. So I would say about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, I was looking at this duplex I wanted to buy. I was so excited. I really, really wanted this duplex to add to my real estate portfolio. And so, in the process of doing this, the dealing with a real estate agent, and of course, she was representing the seller, and I was negotiating with them, and they wanted a certain amount, and I knew it was overpriced. And also, on top of that, when it comes to real estate, I'm looking at the comps in the area. I'm looking, are there tenants in the property? And this is kind of giving you all a little into my mentality when it comes to real estate. So I'm looking at the tenants. Are there tenants in the property? How are they maintaining the property? Is the property clean? Is it nice? Is it quality? Also, how much are they paying already? What is the rent prices right now currently? And what are the potential rent prices in the area and what they could potentially increase to next year? All of that plays a role into whether or not you should buy this property and how much you should buy the property for. And so as we're negotiating, I think it started off around they had initially wanted 207,000, and of course it dropped down. And I want to make at least, I would say about, in a perfect world, I want to make about 12% return on investment if I'm investing in real estate. But I'm happy with 10. I'll take 10%. I just like 12 because that gives you wiggle room if things happen, if problems happen, if you have to fix things up, whatever it is, fine. If it drops down to 10%, then it's still a win. So anywhere between 10 to 12%. So in negotiating this deal and understanding the comps in the area and everything, I tried to negotiate the price down by a lot. And there was a lot of back and forth, and then we're debating on who's paying what at closing, and the deal goes bad. And so I stood my ground and I said, hey, this is the deal. This is what I want the price at, so on and so forth. And we just all agreed to disagree. And so that was the end of that deal. And I rode by the duplex today, and I still saw the for sale sign in the yard. And this is a few months later. So I called the real estate agent and I said, hey, is the property still for sale? Are y'all still selling this? Because I see the sign there, this, that, and other. And she said, no, Mr. Steele, the property's been sold. It's done. I said, oh, okay. I said, do you mind telling me, how much you end up selling it for? After all of this back and forth and negotiating we did. And she said, we actually sold it for what you asked for. I said, oh, okay. All right, well, thank you. I said, you have a great day. And I got off the phone. So that was my interesting conversation today in regards to the duplex that I was trying to buy for a certain price. And I stood my ground because I knew what the property was worth and I knew how much profit I was going to make. So I wasn't going to overspend and then be in the hole. And long story short, they ended up doing a deal with someone for the same thing that I negotiated for. But for whatever reason, they chose to go with another buyer uh, for whatever reason. And so it's not something that I'm going to lose sleep over. It reminds me that knowing and understanding my numbers, knowing and understanding the deal I was trying to make, that I was in the right. And so you have to be confident, whether you're in business, whether you're an entrepreneur, no matter what it is, self employed, whether you're in real estate, investing, whatever your numbers are, whatever deal you're trying to make, don't budge when it's not going to benefit you. Don't budge and put yourself in a negative position to where you miss out or where you're struggling or where you're hurting just to get a deal done. You have to be confident. When you're trying to build wealth and when you're trying to create a legacy, you can't afford to make bad deals. You can't afford to do things that set you backwards. We're on a trajectory and a path to move forward, to have success. This journey, when we talk about Juneteenth, it put us on a trajectory to have success and move forward. We can't afford to have any setbacks. We have to continue to push and strive to make success for yourself, for your family, for your community. And so each and every person, it matters. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the statistics said in 2023, there were a little over 2 million Black millionaires in America, but that only made up about 8.8% of them. So a little less than 9% is represented by the Black community. Now, when you create a legacy, when you do have ownership, it allows you to pass down, it allows you to create generational wealth, not only just for your personal family, but for organizations and communities that can distribute these things, that can steward these things and distribute that stuff out to places that it needs to be. One of the things that I enjoy doing and passing down generational wealth and helping communities and leaving a legacy is some of the work that I do in Cameroon. When you steward, manage, and budget your money properly, you end up getting to a point where you're able to give back to others. You're able to help other people. Yes, I work with my local church and I'm able to give back to my community. I'm able to help those around me uh, in ministry, my local community, but also internationally in Cameroon, a country in Africa, over there by Nigeria in West Africa. And so over there, I'm able to help people who need food. I'm able to help people who need clothes that are going without. We've built one church over there in a town in Cameroon, and in that town it is called Kumbe, and it's Kumbe. So you can always look it up on the map. So in Kumbe, we built one church there, and the church is growing, it's flourishing. I actually have a video on YouTube, Coach Steele's finance training. So that video on YouTube shows the process of the church being built from start to finish. We're talking about basics, from the wood being cut to the structure being put up to the roof to the flooring, and then eventually them celebrating and having a 3-day revival. We're feeding the people in the village. All of this comes from finances. All of this came from people willing to donate towards a cause. And anytime someone donates towards Cameroon, I always give 100% there. So there is no middleman. There is no middle person that gets profits or proceeds or admin, anything like that. But because of being able to have access to make money, financial benefits, have ownership, be able to be an entrepreneur, to have education, I'm able to leave a legacy and pass down generational wealth, not just in America, but internationally in another country, able to have impact, be able to push the mission forward, be able to talk to kids about the importance of education, internationally through technology. And so we cannot limit ourselves. We cannot just take this day lightly, but we need to use a day like today to spread a message and to motivate other people who do not know better. You should become passionate about this. I don't care if you have children, if you have nieces, nephews, loved ones, or yourself. You need to look in the mirror and say, what can I do to improve my financial situation and the circle and the people around me? What can I do to push the envelope financially to put us in a better situation, to create other opportunities for other people? Because sometimes there are plenty of us that are doing well and we're okay. There are many of us that are doing well. We're doing okay. We're not struggling. We have a meal. We have something to eat. But there are other people who may not be doing as well. And I'm not saying that it always has to be $1. I'm not saying that the only way you can help people is financially. But with the education and the knowledge you have, you may be able to create a platform or an environment or a class to be able to take time out to talk to your local community, the local kids, whatever it is, and give them, impart information and education to them that may change their life forever. One of the things I'm excited about this week is I'm going to be able to get back on Facebook Live and YouTube Live and have my son come and talk about ETFs and a little bit about financial literacy and some of the things he's learned through investing. And so it's not super in depth. It's not super complicated. It's just some simple things that he's done to have success as a young person. And by him imparting that information, he's able to help his generation or older people as well with just information. He will have changed somebody's life just by opening his mouth and sharing the information he has and how he has created some passive income for himself at the age of 23 years old. And if we can duplicate that in our community and have other 23-year-olds creating passive income for themselves, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, creating passive income for themselves at such a young age, they'll be doing so much better than we were. They'll be doing so much better than we are when they turn 30, when they turn 40. And we can continue to push this process. Think about this. This is something that I want you all to think about. Think about the subject of life insurance. And I'm not going where you all think I'm going with this, but think about the subject of life insurance. Imagine being a slave. Imagine being a slave and you don't have life insurance on yourself, and you don't have life insurance on your loved ones. You don't have life insurance on your family members. Think about it. But imagine the people who own you actually have life insurance on you. The people who own you have life insurance on you. So if something does happen to you, if you are abused, if you are harmed, if you are killed, that there's a life insurance policy that covers them and what you were worth so that they are properly compensated if something were to happen to you. Not your loved ones, not your family, not your children, but whoever owns you is compensated if something happened to you. Because of Juneteenth and the journey and the process, we now have the ability to put life insurance on ourselves and our loved ones, because a lot of people have used it's funny that there's so many different asset classes that I look at insurance as another asset class. So, whether it's gold, whether it's real estate, you name it, I look at insurance as another asset class. And so the fact that we can now have insurance on ourselves, so if something were to happen to us, we can have a certain level of insurance to cover any debt, to cover any expenses, to also create income in our passing to balance out the fact that we are no longer there for our loved ones and family. And so not only can insurance be used beneficially when you're gone, but there's a way to use insurance while you are still present, while you are still yet alive. And once again, go get guidance, go get advice, go talk to someone in that industry and learn about different subject matters. You know, there's a gentleman named R. Nelson Nash that talks about infinite banking concepts through whole life insurance. And of course, those policies and things need to be set up a certain way. So it's important to talk to a professional when it comes to things like that. But when it's set up properly, you're able to use insurance to create opportunities. You're able to use that insurance properly as they teach it, and set them up properly to leverage them as well. And also, there's insurance out there that uh, can be profitable for you while you are still alive and breathing. But once again, go do some research and you'll learn more about that. I don't want to dive deep into that because I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional, I'm not licensed when it comes to that insurance area. But I do love the subject of it, and I do participate in things like that. So, anyway, I don't want to get too off subject, but the fact that we now can have insurance on ourselves and not someone who owns you having the insurance. So if someone owns you and you're a slave and something happens to you, you pass away, but they have insurance on you, I don't think there's going to be any love lost because they're going to gain if something happens to you. So whether you're working or whether you die, they win. So now think about the fact that things have changed. And so there's a lot to be excited about. And so that is another benefit of Juneteenth is now we're to the place to where we do and can have insurance for ourselves. So if you don't have insurance, I do recommend that you do get insurance for yourself and for your family and your loved ones. And there's a lot of us that you're doing financially well off. So if you have a loved one and they can't afford it, or there's nieces and nephews or cousins or whoever, and they can't afford it, and we just need a little to cover people in case something were to happen. If they allow you to and you have the extra, then get the insurance for them. Pay for the insurance, put the policy in your name, and if something happens, you'll be able to cover that. You don't necessarily have to have $1 million for every person, but get enough to where it's affordable and it can cover the loss of a loved one or a family member, because we don't need to try and, although it does happen, try to avoid having to collect and scrounge up money when we do leave someone. And so that's just another way to where we can leave a legacy and pass down generational wealth and use insurance as an asset to us. And so death doesn't become necessarily a negative financially or liability financially, but it also, not only do you mourn the loss and appreciate the life of the loved one, but you also make things easier for your family during that process, because it can be difficult on a family when they're trying to figure things out emotionally, psychologically, and financially. It takes its toll on people. So anyway, won't stay long on that. That's not fun to talk about. But I'm excited about Juneteenth and the different things and opportunities that we now have at our fingertips. And I talked about financial benefits, ownership, equal pay, entrepreneurship, education, leaving a legacy, and generational wealth. And so I've been on Facebook and YouTube Live for about an hour talking about this stuff. Look forward to talking more about it. Stay tuned. I'm not sure which day. Maybe tomorrow. My son and I, maybe tomorrow evening, we'll get on Facebook Live and YouTube Live and talk about ETFs. So stay tuned for that. I want to talk about good things to potentially invest in to bring in passive income for yourself. And so with that, I think it'll be very beneficial. And also, as time goes by, we'll get to see other people who have benefited from that in the past. On Saturdays, usually around 8:30 in the morning, I always go YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and talk about financial literacy. So stay tuned. We have that coming up on Saturday. Now, this Saturday, I will be in Colorado. So depending on the time zone, with me being there, I should be able to go at 8:30, but that means I have to wake up super early and make a bunch of noise while everyone is sleeping to talk about financial literacy. So I'm sure I'll still be able to keep it at the same time. So stay tuned. That should be pretty interesting to talk about financial literacy on Saturday morning. What better time to talk about financial literacy than on the weekend when we get ready to spend all our hard-earned money that we work for on the weekends? But once again, I enjoyed and appreciate everyone that tuned in, that listened to this. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. Once again, on YouTube, if you want to join my YouTube channel and look at a lot of those other videos that are on there, that I have on there, that are posted, please go to Coach Steele Finance Training and subscribe. And usually on YouTube, before I go live, many times lately, I will announce it and you'll get those updates. Or if I just post a video, you'll get those updates to let you know as well. So I would love you to go and subscribe over there on YouTube. Any interesting things you want to talk about or subjects you want to discuss, feel free to put them in the comments. And if I can get to them, I'll get to them. I love discussing different things about financial literacy. Once again, we have to make it important conversations in our community with our loved ones and make financial literacy a comfortable conversation. We don't have to be uncomfortable. We need to make it a norm and a comfortable conversation in our community and in our households. Before it was taboo. Those days are over. Let's have those conversations and find out and educate ourselves, educate our loved ones. Just because it's not good enough. If you don't know the answers, then we find the answers. If we can't find the answers, we find a platform like this that is going to have those conversations and we educate ourselves as a family. I appreciate everyone that tuned in. I love you all and have a blessed day.